I was mid-lunch when my phone lit up with a message that flipped my stomach upside down. "Hey, Maya's moving in. You need to pack your stuff. We're giving her your room." That's how it started. Not a conversation, not a request, just a cold, flat command from my own father. Let me back up. I'm Logan. I'm 24. And last week, I had to call the cops on my dad for breaking into my house. Not a rental, not some family property passed down the line. My house. The one I legally own. The one he tried to steal out from under me with the subtlety of a cartoon villain. If you'd told me at 15 that I'd be locking my own father out of my home with police standing by, I'd have laughed in your face. But here we are. It all started after my mom passed away when I was a teenager. My dad barely waited 6 months before marrying Leah, a woman who clearly thought grief had a fast-forward button. She was 45 at the time. I was 15. She started throwing away my mom's belongings like they were garage sale leftovers. One afternoon, I came home from school and found my mom's vintage jewelry dumped in a plastic grocery bag on the kitchen counter. I didn't say anything. I just packed a bag and left. I moved in with my grandfather, Thomas, my dad's dad. Retired judge, sharp as glass. Had a 5-bedroom colonial he kept like a museum, quiet and untouched. The man never tried to replace my mom or fix my pain. He just gave me space. Real, sacred space. But what he gave me most was knowledge how to handle property law money. Every Saturday morning was like a real estate boot camp. At the time, I thought he was just quirky. Turns out he was preparing me for a war I didn't know was coming. He passed away 2 years later. I was 17. When the will was read, jaws hit the floor. Grandpa left everything to me, the house, 2 rental properties, and a nice nest egg to get started. My dad got nothing, not a dime. Grandpa had even recorded a video explaining why, said he trusted me more to carry on his legacy. Said my dad had made enough bad decisions to fill a courtroom. My father's face that day, like he'd bitten into a lemon soaked in regret. But I was still a minor, so when he and Leah asked if they could stay at the house for a while until things settle, I didn't really have a choice. I was grieving, confused, still legally under his thumb. So I said, okay, under conditions my room and Grandpa's study were off limits. You already know how that worked out. By 18, I was gone off to college, out of state. Meanwhile, Dad and Leah turned my house into their personal B&B without paying a dime. I handled taxes, repairs, upgrades, everything. I figured they were house-sitting in a way. It kept the place from falling apart. But I didn't just sit on the inheritance. I used the rental income to buy more properties. I wasn't flashy, no sports cars, no late-night bottle service, just slow, smart moves. By the time I graduated at 22, I owned 6 properties. At 24, 8, all producing income, all under my name. You'd think that kind of generosity, 9 years of completely free housing would buy me some goodwill, at least basic respect. Instead, I got blindsided by a demand. Clear out your room. Maya needs it. Maya. I didn't know who that even was. Turns out, Maya is Leah's adult daughter, a woman I'd never heard mentioned once in 9 years. Suddenly, she was part of some custody battle and needed a stable environment. My room was the largest. So naturally, they decided she'd move in, as if this was their house. I asked my dad straight up, who even is this woman? She's Leah's daughter. She's trying to get her kids back. She needs space. Oh, now she has kids. Custody battles, stability. I'd never seen Leah as maternal unless passive aggression counts as parenting. Something didn't sit right. I didn't know Maya. She was a stranger. But worse, they didn't even ask. They told. I could feel my hands shaking. Let me be clear, I told him. If you touch my room or Grandpa's study, you're out, period. And that's when the shouting began. You can't evict us, Dad snapped. We've lived here for years. We have rights. No, I said, cool as ice. You have memories. That's it. Then he said the one thing that made my blood boil. We sold our old place years ago. We have nowhere else to go. Oh, so this wasn't about Maya or stability. This was about control. They'd already torched their parachute, and now they were trying to turn my house into their safety net. Without asking, without contributing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head, my dad, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, now scheming to take over my life like it was his second chance. I started second-guessing everything. Was I really about to evict my own father? Would people think I was cold-hearted? But every time I wavered, I remembered coming home as a teenager to find my mom's photo albums tossed into a trash bag. I remembered Leah redecorating my room without even a word. And now they wanted to do it all over again, this time with a woman I didn't even know. Nope, not again. The next morning, I called my lawyer. We decided to deliver official eviction papers, legal, formal, airtight. I pulled into my driveway, nerves buzzing. Put the key in the lock. It didn't turn. I froze. Tried again. Nothing. They had changed the locks. They changed the locks on my house. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, staring at my useless house key like it had personally betrayed me. I wasn't even mad at first, just stunned. Then the weight of it sank in. They didn't just disrespect me. They didn't just cross a line. They moved the damn line and built a fence around it. They changed the locks on my home. The one they'd been living in for free for almost a decade. The house I paid taxes on, maintained, renovated, insured. And somehow they had the gall to lock me out like I was the intruder. My lawyer was already at the curb, flipping through her binder, expression unreadable, but her grip on the paperwork tightened. "This just went from awkward to criminal," she muttered. We knocked. No answer. We rang the bell. Still nothing. I pounded once more before I heard shuffling inside. Then my dad's voice muffled cold, distant through the door like he was talking to a salesman. "Not letting you in until we talk this through. Maya needs the space. We're not backing down." That's when everything clicked. This wasn't some misunderstanding or desperate move to keep a roof over their heads. It was a power grab. He thought that if he changed the locks first, I'd be forced to back off. That I'd cave, avoid the drama, keep the peace. He was counting on the version of me that used to say yes to keep things quiet. He didn't realize that guy was long gone. My lawyer leaned in. He just admitted he locked out the property owner. "You're well within your rights to involve the police." I didn't even hesitate. I called. And this time, my voice was calm, not angry, not shaken, just resolved. The kind of calm that settles in when you know exactly what you have to do, even if it sucks. When the officers showed up, I handed over every document. Deed will proof of inheritance tax records with my name on every line. Meanwhile, my dad finally opened the door, acting like we were ambushing him. He stepped out, arms crossed like he was the one being wronged. Leah was hovering behind him, mascara smudged, trying to look devastated. And then there was Maya. First time I'd ever laid eyes on her. Mid-30s, looked anxious, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. She didn't say a word, just hovered near the back like she didn't want to be seen but also didn't want to leave. The officer looked my dad straight in the eye. "Sir, did you authorize a locksmith to change the locks on this residence?" My dad nodded without hesitation. "Yes, it's our home. Do you have documentation proving you own the property or pay rent here?" Silence. My dad glanced at Leah. Leah looked at Maya. Nobody answered. I could see the moment it dawned on the officer that this wasn't just a family disagreement. It was trespassing. The officer asked again, "Do you have a lease? Proof of payment? Anything showing legal right to reside here?" "We've lived here for years," my dad finally said. "Family doesn't need paperwork. He's our son." "Unfortunately, sir," the officer said, voice clipped, "that's not how the law works." The conversation didn't last much longer. The locksmith who'd changed the locks got traced in under an hour. Turns out he hadn't verified a single document, just took my dad's word and cashed the check. Big mistake. That man's license was suspended within the week, and he got slapped with a fine that could have paid my property taxes for 2 years. My dad got a criminal citation for unlawful entry and tampering. Watching him sign that form with shaking hands felt surreal, like I was watching the final act of a play I never wanted to be in. As they packed, I hovered near the doorway, watching Maya out of the corner of my eye. Something didn't add up. If she was in the middle of a custody battle, wouldn't she be more involved? She barely touched her bags, didn't speak unless spoken to. I decided to push a little. "So, you're fighting for custody?" I asked, tone neutral. She flinched, like I'd caught her off guard. Yeah, it's complicated. That was red flag number 1. Real parents in real custody fights don't give vague answers. They have dates burned into their brains, names of judges, terms of agreements. I asked her how many kids. She hesitated, then said, 1, a girl. She's 8. Another pause. Another glance at Leah, who was now glaring at me like I'd kicked her puppy. Then came the outburst. "Oh, give me a break," Leah snapped, stepping between me and Maya like a guard dog. "She's going through enough without you interrogating her. You think you're better than all of us now? You think this money makes you a king?" She kept going, loud, ugly, shouting about how I was a heartless brat who let his own father get thrown out like trash. I didn't flinch. Neither did the officer who warned her once to lower her voice before he'd escort her out completely. I didn't need to say anything. Her meltdown said it all. This wasn't about Maya needing help. It was about Leah and my dad wanting control. Maya was a convenient excuse, a prop in their performance. One look at my bedroom confirmed everything. They'd already started clearing it out. My books were gone, closet emptied, desk disassembled. They hadn't just considered moving Maya in. They had planned it, executed it, all before even calling me. That killed whatever guilt I had left. These people weren't victims, they were opportunists. After they were gone, I walked through the house for the first time in months. The silence was eerie. The rooms felt bigger, cleaner, but also strangely lonelier. Still, it was mine again, for real this time. I locked every door, changed every code, called a contractor to overhaul the security system top to bottom. A week later, the locksmith tried to reach out, wanted me to drop the charges, said he didn't know they weren't the owners, blamed the confusion on bad paperwork and family drama, begged, told me he had kids, mortgage, that this could ruin his business. I let him talk. Then I told him, "Maybe next time you'll ask for ID before changing the locks on someone's house." I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. That's the part people don't get about revenge. It's not always about rage. Sometimes it's about clarity, drawing the line and not apologizing for it. I didn't throw a tantrum, didn't scream or cry. I just enforced what was mine. And they couldn't handle it. My dad got charged. The locksmith got fined. And my house. It was quiet, peaceful, mine again. But something still felt off. And I wasn't done digging yet. Because this whole Maya thing, it smelled wrong. And I was about to find out why. I couldn't let it go. Not the eviction, not the lock change, and definitely not Maya. Something about her didn't sit right, and it wasn't just the weird silence or her awkward glances. It was the way she had no urgency, no fire, no trace of a mother clawing her way through a custody battle. I'd met real parents in court once during a rental dispute that escalated into family law territory. You can spot them instantly, the way they talk about their kids, the stress in their voice, the panic behind their eyes. Maya had none of that. Just vague answers and an energy that screamed script. And I wanted to know who wrote it, so I started digging, quietly. I wasn't about to show my cards too early. I didn't want Leah or my dad getting wind of anything. I contacted a friend who worked in the family court clerk's office, not high up, but with enough access to verify public filings. I gave her Maya's full name and birth date. She called me back 2 days later with a voice like she was reading off a fire alarm. There's no active custody petition. None. In fact, Maya lost parental rights 3 years ago. Court records say permanent termination, neglect, and substance abuse. Her daughter lives with the father's sister. No pending case, no supervised visitation, nothing. My stomach turned, not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. I'd suspected it. But hearing the truth printed in black and white court documents made it feel dirtier. They'd lied. Not just exaggerated or bent the truth flat out, invented a sob story. For what? A free bedroom. A free second chance at life in a house they never earned. I didn't even know what stung more, the deception or the fact that they thought I'd fall for it. That I'd be soft enough to hand over everything just because they threw the word custody around like it was a sympathy grenade. And the worst part, they'd used a kid, a real child, Maya's daughter, who had already been through enough. Weaponized her existence as an emotional play. I was so disgusted I had to stop myself from calling my dad right then, but I knew it wouldn't matter. I could have shown him court records, audio recordings, even Maya's full confession, and he'd still find a way to blame me. That's what I'd come to understand. My father didn't want truth. He wanted obedience. And when he didn't get it, he turned manipulative. And now he was facing the consequences. The hearing for the illegal lock change came quickly. He showed up in a cheap suit and even cheaper attitude, standing in front of the judge like he was giving a eulogy for his own pride. Said I betrayed him. Said I stole what was supposed to be his legacy. Never once mentioned the years of free living, the unpaid bills, or the boundaries he trampled. Just ranted about how I turned against my own blood. The judge wasn't having it. Calm but firm, she reminded him that adult children are not property, that inheritance is not a birthright, and that tampering with someone's home, regardless of relation, is still a criminal offense. Dad got 8 months, 5 for breaking and entering, 3 for unlawful lock replacement. No probation, no plea deal, straight time. When the verdict dropped, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. Like I'd watched the final piece of my childhood crack down the middle. Leah didn't say a word leaving the courtroom. She just glared at me like I'd pushed them off a cliff when all I did was move out of the way. And Maya, she vanished. I checked her social media that night. She'd posted a story from some bar tagged in a different state, laughing with strangers like nothing ever happened. So much for that custody battle. A week later, I got a call from Uncle Carter, my dad's younger brother. We hadn't spoken in years, not since a dumb fight about money and family politics. But suddenly he was on the phone, voice syrupy sweet, asking if I'd heard about the family situation. I didn't say much, just listened. And sure enough, he started laying it on thick. Dad's health was failing. Leah was alone. They were going to lose everything. Carter said maybe I could smooth things over once Dad got out. Maybe even help them relocate. I asked one question. You offering your place? Long silence. Well, we don't have the room right now, but... Then don't tell me to offer mine, I said and hung up. That night, I filed for a formal restraining order. I didn't want drama. I wanted distance. I knew Dad wouldn't stay quiet. And I was right. 2 days after his release, he showed up. At my office, in broad daylight, stormed the reception like he owned it, yelling about how I'd ruined his life, waving his arms, shouting my name like he was summoning a demon. Security tried to reason with him, but he just got louder. Said he wanted to speak to his son like a man. My assistant was shaking. Clients were staring. I wasn't embarrassed, I was furious. This wasn't a conversation. It was a meltdown. Police showed up calm but direct, asked him to leave. He refused, violated the restraining order on camera in front of multiple witnesses. They cuffed him while he yelled about stolen property and disloyal children. And me, I didn't flinch. Just turned around, walked back to my office, and closed the door. That night, I reviewed every lease, every property title, every security feed. Then I registered every building under a newly formed LLC with legal protections Dad couldn't touch. I warned every tenant with a photo of him. If he so much as showed up near one of my units, they were to call me and the police immediately. I wasn't leaving any door open this time. I was done playing nice. The next call came from Leah. Not begging this time, just quiet, resigned. She said she was leaving town, going back to her home state. Said she couldn't do this anymore. Then almost as an afterthought, she whispered, Maya lied. I'm sorry. I hung up before she could say more. No apologies would fix it. No confessions would rewrite what they tried to take. You can't unswing a hammer. You can't unburn a bridge. And the worst betrayals, they don't come with grand endings. They come with slow, heavy silence. The kind that follows you home and sits on your chest like fog. Still, I breathed easier, because I knew the worst was behind me, or so I thought. I didn't hear from anyone for a while after Leah's call. The silence felt suspicious. Not peaceful, just like the quiet before a storm. My gut told me something was off, but I didn't know where the next strike would come from. That changed when Uncle Carter called again, this time sounding panicked. No small talk, just straight to business. He needed to sell his house urgently. Wouldn't say why. Just asked if I was interested. That alone raised a flag. But when he told me the address, everything clicked. It was my great-grandparents' house, the one Grandpa Thomas grew up in. The house he'd passed down to Carter after deciding my father wasn't responsible enough to handle anything more valuable than a toolbox. I hadn't seen that place in years. Grandpa once told me he regretted giving it to Carter, said he watched the property decline faster than the family name. Still, I played it cool, asked questions, acted like I was just a casual investor. Carter had no idea I owned 8 properties now. In his mind, I was still the quiet kid with a lucky inheritance. That worked in my favor. I offered him 40% of market value, all cash. Said I'd cover closing costs, legal fees, even the movers. Carter said it was too low, but I could hear the desperation cracking through his words. 2 days later, he called back. Deal, no counter, no negotiation. Just a quiet agreement between 2 people who knew they weren't really family anymore. A week after the papers were signed, I got a call from a neighbor who lived across the street from Carter's house. She'd been around since I was little, watched me grow up, always gave me weird candy on Halloween. Her voice was casual, like we were just catching up, and then she said something that made my blood freeze. Funny, she said, I thought your dad was buying it. That's what he told everyone. I nearly dropped the phone. Suddenly the urgency made sense. Carter hadn't just needed money, he was helping Dad. They were plotting behind the scenes to slide Dad back into the one place he thought he still had a claim to, and I'd unknowingly stepped right into the middle of it. A reverse heist. Except I didn't steal from them. I intercepted what they thought was a sure thing. I sat back in my chair, processing the absurdity of it all. My dad, fresh out of jail, facing a restraining order, had actually believed he was entitled to just waltz back into another property tied to the family legacy, even after everything he still thought I owed him. The worst part, he'd used the last of his bail money to grease Carter into making the sale. So not only was he broke, he was out of options. Or so I thought. 3 days after closing, I got a ping from the new security system I'd installed at the property. Motion sensor front window. I opened the live feed on my phone, expecting a contractor maybe, or a raccoon. What I saw instead, my father, climbing through a cracked side window like a second-rate burglar. I couldn't believe it. There he was, 55 years old, crawling into a house he didn't own, pacing like he was deciding where the couch should go. He moved slowly, cautiously, like someone expecting resistance but still feeling entitled. Checked drawers, opened closets, looked around with the kind of arrogance only someone that delusional could manage. I didn't even react with anger, just disbelief. He really thought that house was his backup plan, like he was owed a second home after getting booted from the first. I watched the footage quiet, letting the situation burn itself into my memory. Then I called the police. Again. This time it didn't take long. Officers arrived while he was still inside, sitting on an old chair in the corner like he was waiting for coffee to brew. He tried to explain. Said it was his family home and that his son bought it for him as a peace offering. The officers weren't buying it. They asked for documentation. He had none. They asked for keys. He didn't have those either. He said he had a verbal agreement. Said Carter had promised it would come back to him. The police looked up ownership records on their tablet, confirmed the house was under my LLC, and then told him to stand up. He froze, stared like he couldn't believe what was happening, like the world had betrayed him instead of the other way around. They cuffed him right there again, this time without ceremony. He didn't resist, didn't yell, just muttered something under his breath about me ruining everything. They took him in for trespassing and violating the existing restraining order which applied to all my properties, including that one. At his hearing, the judge didn't even blink before denying bail. Too many infractions in too short a time. He'd already proven he wasn't going to respect boundaries. This wasn't some broken man hitting rock bottom. This was a man determined to take what wasn't his and stunned that life had finally told him no. While he sat in county again, I started digging into why Carter bailed so quickly. The truth came fast once I connected with a couple mutuals in the local investment circle. Turns out Carter had taken a massive loan from some very questionable people for a house flip that went sideways. 6 figures down the drain, no permits, no buyers, just a rotting shell and a fistful of overdue IOUs. Word was he was getting visits. Unpleasant ones. The kind that don't come with court orders. He needed out fast. And he needed cash in hand. I was the solution. Not because he trusted me, but because I paid quickly and didn't ask questions. But now I had answers. All of them. The whole thing had been a setup. Carter sells the house. Dad moves in under the radar. No paperwork, no rent, no rules. They thought I'd never notice. Or maybe they thought I'd let it go to avoid family tension. They didn't count on cameras, on LLCs, on someone who'd learned finally that protecting your peace sometimes means shutting every door behind you, including the ones with your family's name on them. I wasn't angry anymore, not even sad. I felt clean. That was the strange part, like I'd finally finished the last chapter of a story that had been choking me for years. And as I drove past the newly reclaimed house later that week, I didn't stop. I didn't stare. I didn't even think about who might have grown up there or what it once meant to Grandpa. That version of the family was gone. I had a different legacy now, and it wasn't based on blood. It was based on truth, on action, on choosing to rebuild where others had only ever tried to steal. I thought that was it. I really did. My father was back in jail. Carter had skipped town with whatever cash I handed him. The house was mine, the locks were changed, and the cameras rolled 24/7. Everything was locked down, clean, finished, or so I wanted to believe. But you know how it goes. Just when you think the story's over, someone always shows up with a missing page. This time, it was Leah. She caught me outside the courthouse after my dad's latest hearing, looking like a shadow of herself. No makeup, pale fingers trembling around a paper coffee cup that hadn't been sipped. I didn't want to talk, but she stepped in front of me, blocking my way like she had something sacred to say. "Please," she whispered, eyes wide. "Just give me 5 minutes. You don't know the whole truth." I should have walked past her, but part of me needed closure. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, just facts. So we sat in my car engine, off-street noise humming outside like distant static. She didn't make excuses, didn't cry, at least not at first. She just stared at the dashboard and told me the real story. The truth about Maya, the truth about the custody lie, the truth about everything. There was never a custody battle. Leah started, voice low and thin. Maya lost custody 3 years ago. Terminated. No chance of appeal. We knew it was over. I didn't speak. She kept going. She wasn't trying to get her daughter back. She just needed a place to stay. Somewhere she wouldn't get drug tested or asked too many questions. So we told you she was fighting for her kid because we thought you'd have a heart. That line hit me in a way nothing else had. We thought you'd have a heart. Like I was the one failing some moral test just because I didn't let a manipulative scheme run me over. She wasn't even crying, just ashamed. quietly unraveling in the passenger seat like a storm with no lightning left. "Your dad didn't know the full story either," she added. "He really thought helping Maya would fix things. That if he could prove he was doing something right for once, you'd let him back in." I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth. No performances, no lies. Just come to me as people who needed help. "Because we didn't deserve help," she said. And we knew that. That silence between us. That was the sound of 10 years of manipulation finally cracking open. And what spilled out wasn't rage. It was grief. Not just for what they did, but for who they never tried to become. Leah begged me to reconsider. Said when my dad got out, they'd try again. This time the right way. Pay rent. Respect boundaries. Start fresh. She asked if I had any units open in my rentals. Said they wouldn't mind something small. I told her they weren't available, which was true technically. But even if one had been, the answer would have been the same. I'd given them a chance already. 9 years of free housing, 0 contribution, and a goodbye wrapped in lockpicks and lies. That was their story, and I wasn't about to write another chapter for them. When she realized I wasn't budging, she didn't get angry. She just nodded slowly like someone who finally understood the door wasn't just closed, it was gone. That night, word spread fast. My dad's side of the family must have had a group chat ready because within a day, I started getting calls from people I hadn't heard from in a decade. Aunts, cousins, a godfather I hadn't seen since I was 12. All of them suddenly concerned, suddenly opinionated, all asking the same question in different voices. How could you do this to your father? One cousin called it a disgrace. An aunt said it was unchristian. Someone else said I was being poisoned by money. The funniest part? Not one of them had offered to take him in. Not one opened their doors or wallets. But somehow I was the bad guy for not handing mine over. I started replying with the same question every time, "Why don't you let him stay with you?" Every time, the answer shifted. Not enough space. Kids in college, just remodeled the basement, health issues. Funny how charity always stops at the front door. Eventually, I stopped answering. I changed my number. Let my lawyer deal with anything that had the word family in it. I was done explaining myself to people who only remembered my name when it was convenient. But my father wasn't done. Not yet. A week after his release, he showed up again, this time at my office. Security caught him loitering in the parking lot, pacing, looking around like he was waiting for a moment to pounce. They called the police before he even got inside. He didn't resist arrest, just asked to speak with me one more time. Said it was man to man. Said he wanted to clear the air. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something that had taken years to accept. Some people don't want peace. They want a loophole, a crack in your armor, a moment where guilt outweighs memory and you open the door just wide enough for them to step back in. And when you don't give it to them, they call you heartless. I wasn't heartless. I was just no longer hollow. The court granted a permanent restraining order this time. 500 feet from me, my business, my tenants, my properties, everything. Any violation would lead to immediate jail time. And with 2 on his record already, there wouldn't be any more warnings. I filed new LLC paperwork consolidating all my real estate holdings under a secure trust, updated all my insurance policies, rotated the security codes. Every tenant got a photo of my father and strict instructions to call the cops if he ever stepped foot near them. I was thorough, not because I was scared, but because I'd learned. Family, when left unchecked, can do more damage than any stranger. And this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about prevention. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting alone in my grandpa's old study, the one room I'd never fully touched since moving back in. Something about it felt sacred, frozen in time. His books were still lined up by color. His old pen still rested beside the legal pads he never let anyone touch. I opened the bottom drawer of his desk, one I hadn't opened since I was 17. Inside, I found a sealed envelope addressed to his attorney dated 3 months before he passed. I opened it. Inside was a letter, long, handwritten, deliberate. In it, Grandpa explained why he left everything to me, why he'd bypassed both his sons. He called them reckless, emotionally weak, and addicted to entitlement. He said he loved them, but he didn't trust them. Not with property, not with legacy, not with anything that required discipline. Then he wrote something I'll never forget. I'm giving you the house because you listened, because you showed up, because you didn't ask for anything and still gave me peace. You don't owe them anything, not even kindness if it costs you your soul. I read that last line twice. And for the first time since this war started, I felt weight lift, like I wasn't just justified, I was understood by the only man who'd ever truly taught me what legacy meant. It wasn't about money or houses. It was about choosing what to protect and what to let go of forever. The first real breath I took in months came the morning after I finished reading Grandpa's letter. I sat in his old chair as the sun crawled across the floor, its warmth spreading over the desk like some kind of quiet approval. I hadn't touched that room in years. I always thought keeping it exactly as he left it would help me hold on to him. But now I understood he wasn't in the furniture or the dusty law books or the ink-stained notepads. He was in the decisions I made, the boundaries I enforced, the life I built when no one else thought I could. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Not for the eviction, not for the court cases, not for the silence I chose over arguments. I owed no one but myself. That same day, I started packing up the study, not to erase Grandpa, but to move forward. His lessons had already taken root. I didn't need a shrine. I needed space for the life I was still building. Meanwhile, Dad was back in court this time for violating the restraining order. No lawyer this time, just a public defender and a head hung low. The judge didn't want drama. She laid down the law clear and calm. 6 more months, no bail, probation to follow. Another scar on a record that was already starting to weigh him down. I didn't attend the hearing. My lawyer went instead. I stayed home, drank coffee, did paperwork, rented out a duplex. It's strange how quickly a person can fade from your life once you stop carrying their weight. Leah sent me one final message a few weeks later. She said she was officially divorced, had moved out of state, and was trying to start over. She didn't ask for anything, not money, not forgiveness, not a second chance, just a quiet goodbye. I didn't reply. Some doors close without slamming, and some goodbyes don't need words. Maya disappeared the moment the free housing vanished. I heard from someone that she'd moved back in with an old boyfriend in another city, probably still spinning whatever story earned her the most sympathy. I didn't chase her down. I didn't care to know. Let her become someone else's burden. As for Uncle Carter, he resurfaced 6 months later online. His name popped up in a foreclosure report for a tiny house in a dead-end town 2 states away. That's the last time I checked. I didn't click the link, didn't need the details. He made his decisions. I just happened to be the exit ramp he took before the whole thing collapsed. But this story, my story, it didn't end in courtrooms or police stations. It ended in peace. Quiet, unshakable peace. My rental business kept growing. I added 2 more properties that year, both in up-and-coming neighborhoods with good schools, strong demand, and long-term value. I created maintenance systems, hired a part-time assistant to handle leasing, built a tenant referral program that kept units filled with quality people. Every move I made was rooted in clarity. No guilt, no emotional weight, just structure, focus, and the lessons Grandpa left behind. I started dating someone new. Her name's Arya. We met through mutual friends. She didn't ask about my family at first, and I didn't offer it. When the topic finally came up, I told her the truth. All of it. From the eviction to the restraining orders to the legacy I almost let slip through my fingers. She didn't judge me. She just nodded and said, Sometimes protecting yourself is the most honest thing you can do. I knew right then we were going to be okay. We hosted our first Thanksgiving together last year. Nothing big, just a few close friends. Some former tenants who'd become like family, and my assistant and her boyfriend. No drama, no surprise guests. Just good food, warm laughs, and people who understood that loyalty isn't about blood. It's about showing up and doing the work. Halfway through dinner, I looked around the table and realized something. This wasn't just a holiday. This was a full circle moment. I wasn't the kid stuck in someone else's narrative anymore. I wasn't waiting for approval or hiding from guilt. I was the author now, and I was writing chapters that finally made sense. A few months after that, I visited Grandpa's grave for the first time since the fallout. I brought a cup of his favorite coffee and sat next to the headstone for a while. Just breathing, just thinking. Then I pulled out a copy of the trust documents I'd built. Listed the properties, the tenants, the legal protections. I told him everything. Every hard call. Every night I wanted to give up. Every moment I remembered what he taught me. I left the papers there, tucked under a small stone. Maybe it was silly. Maybe no one else would understand. But to me, it was a thank you. A final proof that I'd earned what he gave me, and that I would never let it be stolen. That winter, I launched a mentorship program for young adults aging out of foster care. Nothing flashy. Just one-on-one financial literacy, rental coaching, basic legal rights. I didn't tell anyone it was personal, but it was. I'd seen what happened when people had no knowledge, no stability, and no one in their corner. I'd lived it just with a lucky head start and a grandfather who believed in me. This was my way of passing it forward. Quietly. No need for applause. A few friends still ask if I'll ever reconcile with my dad. If maybe one day we'll talk again. I always give the same answer. That man chose his path. I chose mine. We don't need to cross anymore. Some people nod, others push back. But he's still your father. Yes, he is, and I'll always carry that truth. But biology doesn't make someone worthy of your peace. And family without respect is just a liability in a shared photo album. I sleep well now, really well. No late-night texts, no uninvited visits, no creeping dread that someone's plotting behind my back. Just clean books, clear leases, solid locks, and quiet mornings. That's what winning looks like when your battle was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming your life. Sometimes people ask me if I have regrets, if I wish I'd handled things differently, maybe been more patient, more forgiving. But here's the truth, I don't. Because boundaries aren't weapons, they're shields. And mine kept me whole. So if you're reading this and someone in your life is trying to make you feel guilty for choosing yourself, for protecting your peace, for saying no, when everything in you screams yes out of obligation, remember this story. Remember the locks. Remember the lies. Remember that choosing yourself is not cruelty. It's clarity. And sometimes it's the only thing that keeps you from becoming the version of yourself they want: compliant, quiet, endlessly giving. I chose the version Grandpa saw in me. The one who builds, not bleeds. The one who protects, not pleads. And if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't change a single step. Because now I don't just own homes, I own peace. And that's something no one will ever take from me again. Story 2. You're not invited. Sophia doesn't want you ruining her perfect day. My family texted coldly after I'd funded their entire wedding. I snapped. Then pay for it yourselves, leeches, while canceling everything. Now both families are begging me to reconsider. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. throwaway account. Because family knows my main. This is long, but worth every word. This happened 6 months ago, and I'm still processing it. Posted this story in parts on other forums, but wanted to share the complete version here because you guys always give the best advice. And honestly, I need to get this off my chest. Some of you might think I went too far. Others will probably say I didn't go far enough. Read the whole thing before you judge. TLDR at the bottom, but seriously read the whole story. It gets wild. Let me start with some background so you understand the family dynamics and why this revenge was so perfectly justified. When I was 12 years old, our house caught fire in the middle of the night. Electrical issue in the basement spread fast. I woke up to smoke and immediately ran to get my little sister Sophia out of her room. She was only 8 at the time, scared and crying. I got her to safety, handed her off to my parents who were already outside, then realized our dog was still inside. Yeah, I know, stupid kid move. But I love that dog. I made it back inside. Found Rex hiding under the kitchen table. But when I tried to get out, part of the ceiling had collapsed and blocked the main exit. The smoke was getting thick, and I was panicking. I could hear Sophia screaming my name from outside. I could hear my parents shouting at the firefighters to hurry up. The heat was getting unbearable, and I was down on my hands and knees trying to find another way out. When I heard this horrible creaking sound above me, that burning beam came down like the hand of God. Massive, blazing, and faster than I could move. It caught me across the left side of my face and pinned me for what felt like forever, but was probably only 30s. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Not just the burning, but this crushing weight and the smell of my own skin cooking. Rex didn't make it. The smoke got him before the beam got me. Took the firefighters about 4 minutes total to reach me, but that was enough time for the damage to be permanent. 3rd-degree burns. Multiple skin graft surgeries over 2 years. The doctors did their best. But let's just say I wasn't going to be winning any beauty contests. The scars are noticeable. They run from my left temple down to my collarbone. At first, my parents acted supportive hospital visits, encouraging words telling me how brave I was for saving Sophia and trying to save Rex. The dog didn't make it, which still hurts. But once the medical bills started piling up and the reality set in that their son wasn't going to be the handsome golden boy anymore, things changed real quick. Sophia became the new favorite practically overnight. She was beautiful, charming, had that natural charisma that makes people want to be around you. Perfect blonde hair, bright blue eyes, the kind of smile that lights up a room. Everything my parents wanted in a child to show off to their friends. I became the responsible one. Family code for the kid who handles problems quietly and doesn't draw unwanted attention to the family's imperfect child. Growing up with burn scars teaches you some harsh lessons early, like how people look at you. That quick glance, then looking away, then another quick glance when they think you're not watching. How strangers talk to you differently, either with exaggerated pity or barely concealed discomfort. How your own family starts making little comments that cut deeper than any fire ever could. Dad would joke about me staying behind the scenes because I was better with numbers anyway. And some people are meant to be in the spotlight. Others are meant to make sure the spotlight works. Mom would suggest I wear high-collared shirts for family photos or stand in the back where the shadows were better. Or maybe just be the one taking the pictures instead. It's not that we're ashamed, she'd say. We just want everyone to focus on the positive you know, but here's what that experience really gave me: an incredible drive to prove my worth in other ways. If I couldn't be the handsome son, I'd be the successful one. If I couldn't charm people with my looks, I'd impress them with my achievements. I started working construction summers when I was 16, hard physical work that most kids my age wouldn't touch while Sophia was at the mall or the beach. I was learning how to frame houses, pour concrete, read blueprints. The older guys respected work ethic and scars. Didn't matter when you could outwork guys twice your age. By 18, I had my contractor's license. By 22, I'd started my own construction company. By 25, I was pulling in around $190,000 a year and had 12 guys working for me. We specialized in high-end residential work, the kind of houses where people drop $800,000 on renovations. The burn scars made dating pretty much impossible through my 20s. So I threw myself completely into building the business. No distractions, no social life, just pure focus on becoming financially bulletproof. Turns out, getting rejected constantly gives you insane motivation to succeed in other areas. My family noticed the money way before they noticed my success. Sophia grew up beautiful and entitled as hell. I'm talking next-level Disney villain entitled. She genuinely believed the world owed her everything because she had good genetics and knew how to bat her eyelashes. Never worked a real job in her life. Dropped out of college twice. First time because the professors didn't understand her creative vision. She was failing second time because the social dynamics were too toxic. Nobody wanted to do her homework for her anymore, but somehow she always landed on her feet because people just gave her things. She had this way of making you feel special. When she needed something, then completely ignoring you once she got it. Classic manipulation. But she was so pretty and charming that most people never caught on until it was too late. The guys she dated were always the same type insecure men with decent jobs who were so grateful that a girl like her would even look at them that they'd empty their wallets trying to keep her happy. She'd date them for a few months, drained their bank accounts with emergencies and special occasions, then move on to the next victim. Then she met Derek. Derek Wilson was different from her usual Target's marketing director at a mid-sized firm in Hartford. We lived about an hour outside the city in Connecticut. Drove a leased BMW, wore expensive suits, and had that fake confidence that comes from watching too many alpha male YouTube videos. But most importantly, his parents had money. Real money. Old Connecticut family money. Derek was the kind of guy who talked constantly about building his brand and leveraging synergies. He'd use business buzzwords in casual conversation and quote motivational speakers like they were ancient philosophers. The first time I met him, he actually tried to give me a business card at a family barbecue and suggested I follow his professional journey on LinkedIn. He had this habit of name-dropping expensive restaurants he'd been to and casually mentioning his networking events at country clubs. They got engaged after dating for only 8 months, which should have been red flag number 1. But Sophia had found her golden ticket, and Derek's parents were desperate for grandchildren to carry on the family name. The engagement party was at our parents' house, and I'll never forget that night as long as I live. Keen. Derek's parents came Richard and Patricia Wilson, and you could tell immediately they weren't thrilled about their son marrying someone from our decidedly middle-class family. Richard was this tall, silver-haired guy who wore a suit to a backyard barbecue and kept checking his watch. Patricia was one of those women who smiled constantly, but her eyes stayed cold like she was calculating the social cost of every interaction. They were being polite but distant to everyone. Until Patricia saw me, I was coming out of the kitchen carrying a tray of food. When she turned around and got a full view of my scars, for the first time she literally did a double take, and I watched her face go through this whole sequence of emotions: shock, discomfort, then this barely concealed look of disgust. That's when Sophia noticed what was happening. Instead of defending me or changing the subject, she laughed. Actually fucking laughed. "Oh, that's just my brother Jake," she said in this bright, dismissive voice. "Don't worry about him. We're planning to keep him away from the wedding photos anyway. Can't have him scaring the guests, right?" The whole group laughed. Derek's parents, my parents, Derek, even some family friends who were standing nearby like it was the funniest observation anyone had ever made. I watched Derek actually slap his knee like Sophia had just delivered the punchline to the world's greatest joke. "That's hilarious," Derek said, wiping fake tears from his eyes. "Sophia, you're terrible. But seriously, that's probably smart planning. Wedding photos are forever, you know." Patricia Wilson. Derek's mother chimed in with her own gem. "Oh, that's so considerate of you both. When Richard and I got married, his cousin had this terrible lazy eye situation, and we spent so much money on photo editing afterward. It's much easier to just plan around these challenges from the beginning." Smart thinking, Richard said with this approving nod. Image is everything at these events, absolutely. My mother agreed quickly. Jake understands. He's always been very practical about these situations. I just stood there holding that tray, feeling that familiar burn of humiliation spread through my chest. But this time was different. This time I wasn't a scared kid with no options. I was a grown man with money connections and the ability to make their lives very, very difficult. I should have walked away that night. Instead, I smiled, nodded, and decided to see exactly how far they'd push it. That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was the smartest thing I ever did. The wedding planning started immediately. And guess who they came to first? Jake, sweetheart, you're so good with money and planning, Mom said during a family dinner, 2 weeks after the engagement party. Could you help us figure out the budget for Sophia's wedding? What she really meant was, we're broke and you're rich, so pay for it. But we're going to phrase it like you're doing us a tiny favor. Dad jumped in with his version of emotional manipulation. Your sister's only going to get married once. Son, this is a big moment for our family. Spoiler alert, it wouldn't be her only wedding, but we didn't know that yet. Sophia had already picked out the venue before even talking to me about budget. The Riverside Manor, this fancy place that charged $12,500 just for the space rental. Then there was catering for 180 people at $85 per head. Photography was $4,200 for the premium package. The dress she absolutely had to have was $3,400 when I pulled out my calculator and started adding it up. The total came to over $35,000. I set down my pen and looked around the table. So, just to be clear, you're asking me to pay $35,000 for a wedding where I'm not allowed in the photos, Jake. Don't be dramatic, Sophia said, waving her hand dismissively. You'll be at the wedding. You'll have fun. You just won't be in the formal photos. Because honestly, Derek's family is very concerned about aesthetics. Aesthetics. You know what I mean? They come from a very image-conscious background. Old money family country club people. They have certain expectations. Mom jumped in to smooth things over. It's not personal, honey. It's just easier for everyone if we work around the situation. The situation being my face. Don't put words in our mouths, Dad said, getting defensive. We're just trying to make everyone comfortable. That's when Sophia pulled out the big guns. Besides Jake, this is my special day. I've dreamed about this wedding since I was little. I deserve to have everything perfect. She started tearing up those perfect crocodile tears she'd mastered by age 10. After everything I've been through, after all the guys who've hurt me, I finally found someone who loves me and wants to marry me. Can't you just be happy for me? Can't you help make my day special? And like an idiot, I fell for it. Fine, I said. I'll cover the major expenses. The relief on everyone's faces should have been my second warning sign, so I started paying first. The venue deposit, $4,000, then the photographer's retainer, $2,000. Then Sophia's dress, because she was literally dying without it and couldn't focus on anything else until it was ordered. But here's where it gets really twisted. Every single payment came with little comments about my appearance. When I handed over the check for her dress, Sophia said at least one of us will look good in the photos. Then she laughed like it was the most natural thing in the world. When I paid the florist, Mom suggested that maybe I should coordinate my outfit with the wedding party so I wouldn't clash with the color scheme. When I asked what she meant, she said, well, maybe something with a higher neckline to balance things out. Derek was the worst, though. He had this way of making requests that sounded reasonable but were actually designed to hide me away. Hey, Jake, would you mind being our coordinator on the day of, making sure vendors show up on time, handling any issues that come up? It would be such a huge help. And honestly, you're so much better at that stuff than the rest of us. What about during the ceremony? Oh, you'd watch from the coordinator station. It's actually got a better view than most of the guest seats. The coordinator station was in the back corner behind a pillar, and maybe you could wear something. Dark black suit, dark shirt. It would help you blend into the background so you can move around without disrupting the photos. Each comment was a small cut, but I kept paying because some pathetic part of me still believed that if I made her day absolutely perfect, maybe she'd remember that I was her brother who loved her. The comments got worse. As the wedding approached, Derek started joking about having me work as a busboy during the reception. Since you're already coordinating everything anyway, and you're so good at staying invisible, Sophia suggested I might want to consider wearing makeup to even out your skin tone. For the photos, I wouldn't be in anyway. Mom asked if I'd looked into that plastic surgery we talked about because it would be such a nice wedding gift to myself. Even distant relatives got in on the act. My Aunt Carol, who I'd helped move houses twice for free, made a comment about how at least one Morrison kid would look good in the wedding album. My cousin Brad, whose student loans I'd helped pay off, asked if I was planning to keep the scary side of your face turned away from people during the reception. Maybe she'd stand up for me just once. Maybe she'd tell Derek's snobby parents that her brother was a successful businessman who'd saved her life and deserved respect. Maybe she'd realize that family should mean something. Spoiler alert, she didn't realize any of that. The final straw came 2 weeks before the wedding. By then, I'd paid for literally everything: venue, catering, flowers, music decorations, transportation, even the fucking wedding favors. We're talking about $41,000 total. That's when I got the text that changed everything. I was in my office going over blueprints for a new house project when my phone buzzed. Group text with my parents, Sophia, Derek, and both of Derek's parents. Hey everyone, small change to the wedding plans. We've decided to keep the ceremony super intimate, just immediate family. And Derek sighed. Jake, we'll catch up with you at the reception. Thanks for understanding. I read it once. Then again, then a third time, trying to make sure I understood what was happening. They weren't just hiding me in the back anymore. They were cutting me out of the ceremony entirely. The ceremony that I'd paid for. I called Sophia immediately. What the hell is this about? Oh, Jake. Hi. Don't be dramatic about the text. It's really not a big deal. Not a big deal. You're kicking me out of the ceremony. We're not kicking you out. You're still invited to the reception. It's just that Derek's parents specifically requested that the ceremony be kept to immediate family only. I am immediate family. I'm your brother. There was a pause then. Well, yes, technically, but they mean like photogenic immediate family. People who will look good in the wedding video. Photogenic. Immediate family. Jake. Come on, you know what I mean. Derek's parents are paying for the videographer, and they want the ceremony footage to be clean, professional looking. They're planning to use clips for their Christmas cards and social media. Let me get this straight. Derek's parents, who haven't paid for a single thing, get to decide who's allowed at the ceremony that I funded. It's not about money, Jake. It's about family harmony. Derek's mom specifically said she'd be uncomfortable having visible reminders of accidents in the ceremony footage. Visible reminders of accidents. You're twisting my words. She just meant that some people find burn scars distressing, and she wants everyone to feel comfortable and happy. And what did you say when she said that? About your brother, another pause. Longer this time. I said I understood where she was coming from, and that hit me like a physical blow. My own sister. The girl I'd run into a burning building to save had agreed that my scars were too distressing for her wedding ceremony. I see, Jake, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. You'll still be at the reception. You can still celebrate with us as long as I stay in the back where the camera won't catch me. Look, I know this isn't ideal, but it's just one day. Can't you just do this for me, please? That's when I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. To them, I wasn't family. I was a walking bank account with an embarrassing face attached. You know what, Sophia? You're absolutely right. It's your special day, and you deserve to have it. Exactly the way you want it. Really? Oh my God. Thank you. I knew you'd understand. I do understand. I understand perfectly. Great. Oh, and one more tiny thing. Can you pick up the final payment for the cake? It's only like $900. Sure thing. I'll take care of it today. You're the best brother ever. I love you so much. I hung up and sat in my office chair staring at the wall. Then I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. I started making calls. First call was to the Riverside Manor. "Hi, this is Jake Morrison. I need to discuss the Morrison-Wilson wedding scheduled for next Saturday." "Of course, Mr. Morrison. How can I help you? I need to cancel the entire event." "Cancel, sir. The event is in 8 days. According to our contract, cancellations within 2 weeks forfeit the entire deposit, and you're still responsible for 50% of the total bill." "I understand. Cancel it anyway." "Sir, are you sure this is a $12,500 venue fee plus catering for 180 guests? We're talking about a significant amount of money." "I'm aware. Cancel the event and send me the bill." There was a long pause. "Mr. Morrison, I have to ask. Does the bride know about this cancellation? The bride will be informed." Second call was to the caterer. Same conversation, same result. Third call was to the photographer. "Hi, this is Jake Morrison. I need to cancel the Morrison-Wilson wedding package." "Jake, hi, is everything okay?" "We're all set for Saturday. The timeline looks great. The wedding's off. Cancel the package." "Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you sure? We could maybe reschedule if it's just a timing issue." "It's not a timing issue. The wedding is permanently canceled by the end of the day." I'd canceled every single vendor, the florist, the DJ, the transportation company, the cake designer, even the company providing tables and chairs. All of them had my name as the primary contact because I'd paid for everything. Some of the vendors tried to talk me out of it. The florist, a sweet older woman named Mrs. Chen, actually sounded worried. "Mr. Morrison, are you sure about this? Your sister seemed so excited when she picked out the arrangements. Is everything all right with the family?" "Everything's fine, Miss Chen. We've just decided to go in a different direction." The DJ was less sympathetic, but equally confused. "Dude, this is going to cost you a fortune in cancellation fees. Like we're talking about losing your deposits plus penalties." "Are you absolutely sure?" "Completely sure." Each cancellation felt like lifting a weight off my shoulders. With every conversation, I was taking back a piece of my dignity that they'd been trampling on for months. But I wasn't done. Not even close. See, Derek had been bragging for months about his job, how he was being considered for a promotion to senior marketing director at his firm, how his boss was really impressed with his strong family values and commitment to traditional marriage. His boss was a guy named Robert Patterson, old school conservative, very focused on company image and employee character. The kind of man who still believed that how you treat your family reflects who you are as a person. So I gave Mr. Patterson a call. "Hi, Mr. Patterson. This is Jake Morrison. I'm Derek Wilson's future brother-in-law. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to reach out about something that's been bothering me, of course." "Jake, Derek's told me so much about the upcoming wedding. How can I help you?" "Well, sir, I wanted to give you some context about Derek's character. Since I understand he's being considered for a promotion, I told him everything. How Derek's family was excluding me from the wedding ceremony because of my burn scars. How Derek had personally asked me to cover up so his family wouldn't be uncomfortable. How did they take in $41,000 from me and then decided I was too unsightly to be seen at the event I'd funded? I'm not calling to cause trouble," I said. "I just thought you should know the kind of man you're considering for a leadership position. Someone who discriminates against disabled family members and takes their money while hiding them away. Well, that doesn't seem like the kind of character your company would want representing you." Mr. Patterson was quiet for a long time. Then, "Jake, I'm deeply sorry you're experiencing this. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Derek's promotion will be reconsidered." But even that wasn't enough. I had one more card to play. The wedding was supposed to be on Saturday. By Thursday morning, my phone was exploding. "What the fuck did you do?" Sophia was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "The venue says we're canceled. The caterer won't return our calls." "That's weird," I said calmly. "Maybe there was some kind of mix-up." "Mix-up? They said you called and canceled everything. I wonder why they would say that." "Fix this right now. I'm sorry. I can't help you. I'm not allowed at the ceremony? Remember, I'm just a visible reminder of accidents. I figured you'd want to handle the wedding planning yourself since it's so important that everything be photogenic. Jake, I swear to God I hung up. Mom called next crying. Jake, please. Whatever's happening, we can work it out. Is having a complete breakdown. Where was this concern when she was agreeing that my face was too distressing for her wedding? She didn't mean it that way. Honey, she's just stressed. Yes, she did mean it that way. And so did you when you asked me to wear high collars for family photos. And so did Dad when he said I should stay behind the scenes. We were just trying to. You were trying to hide me away while taking my money. I get it. Message received. Dad tried the angry approach. You fix this mess right now, boy. You're destroying your sister's wedding out of spite. Actually, you guys destroyed my relationship with this family years ago. I'm just declining to fund it anymore. We gave you a home, we raised you, we paid for your medical bills. You mean the medical bills from when I got burned saving Sophia's life? Yeah, thanks for covering the cost of me being a hero. Really? Going above and beyond their dad. Don't get smart with me. Too late. I'm already smart. That's how I made enough money for you to steal in the first place. I hung up on him too. Then Derek called. This conversation was the most satisfying one yet. Jake, and I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You wanted me hidden away because my scars don't fit your family's image. Message received loud and clear. Look, we can work something out. What if we compromise? What if you're in some of the photos, just not the main ceremony shots? What if you go fuck yourself, Derek? Come on, man, be reasonable. Do you have any idea how much money we've lost? How much this is costing us? Actually, yes. I know exactly how much it's costing, because I'm the one who paid for all of it. We can pay you back. With what money? Your boss called you into a meeting yesterday, didn't he? There was a long silence. What did you do? I told him the truth about your character, about how you treat family members who don't meet your aesthetic standards. You son of a bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done to my career? Your career, Derek. They just demoted you from marketing director to social media coordinator. I'd say your career was already pretty much over. We had a deal. You were supposed to pay for the wedding. The deal was that I'd pay for a wedding where I was treated like family. You changed the terms when you decided I was too ugly to be seen. So I changed my terms too. This is insane. You can't just destroy people's lives because your feelings got hurt. Watch me. I hung up and turned off my phone, but I wasn't done yet. The real masterpiece was still coming. Saturday arrived. The day that was supposed to be Sophia's perfect wedding. Instead, it became the day their entire world fell apart. I drove to the Riverside Manor around 11 a.m. just to witness the chaos firsthand. There were about 30 cars in the parking lot. Guess who hadn't gotten the memo that everything had been canceled? Derek was standing outside in his $800 tuxedo, holding his phone and looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Sophia was there too, in her $3,400 dress, having what could only be described as a complete mental breakdown. She was screaming at someone on the phone, probably the venue manager, while Derek's parents stood nearby looking like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Other guests were milling around in confusion, checking their phones, asking each other what was going on. I parked across the street and just watched the show. The scene was better than any movie I'd ever watched. Guests were arriving in their fancy cars, getting out in their expensive outfits, only to be met with chaos. Some people were trying to call the venue. Others were calling Derek and Sophia. A few of the older relatives were sitting on the steps looking completely lost. Derek's groomsmen showed up in a rented party bus already half drunk and ready to celebrate, only to find their boy having a complete meltdown in the parking lot. I watched one of them, his college buddy Chad, trying to console Derek while simultaneously trying to figure out if this meant they should just go to a strip club instead. Sophia's bridesmaids were even better entertainment. These girls had spent hundreds of dollars on dresses, hair, and makeup, and they were pissed. I could see them forming little huddles, frantically texting, some of them already heading back to their cars. One girl, Sophia's maid of honor, was yelling at someone on the phone, probably trying to figure out if there was any way to salvage this disaster. That's when my phone started ringing. I turned it back on specifically to enjoy this moment. "Jake, please, I'm begging you." Sophia was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "I'll do anything. I'll pay you back every single penny. Pay me back with what money you've never had a job in your life. Derek will pay you back. His family has money. Derek just got demoted to social media coordinator, and his family isn't going to be real eager to support him financially right now. Please, Jake, everyone's here. Everyone's watching. This is the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to me." "Good. Now you know how I felt when you agreed that my face was too distressing for your ceremony? I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. You wanted to take my money and hide me away like a dirty secret. Then Mom called Jake. Your sister is devastated. People are starting to leave. The gossip is going to be terrible. You have to help fix this." "I have to help." "Where was that energy when you were asking me to stand behind pillars so I wouldn't ruin photos?" "We never meant to hurt you." "Of course you meant to hurt me. You've been doing it for 15 years. The only difference is now there are consequences." But this is destroying Sophia's reputation. Sophia's reputation is, what a gold digger who uses her disabled brother as a bank account. Yeah, that reputation probably should be destroyed. Please, just this once, be the bigger person. I was the bigger person for 28 years. I'm done being the bigger person. Dad made one last desperate attempt. "This is your sister, Jake. Family forgives. Family helps each other." "You're absolutely right, Dad. Family does help each other. Family accepts each other. Family doesn't hide their burned son away because he ruins the aesthetic. Family doesn't take $41,000 from someone and then exclude them from what they paid for. We'll invite you to everything from now on. You can be in all the photos. We'll make it right." Here's the thing. I don't want to be in your photos anymore. I don't want to be at your events. I don't want to be your emergency fund. I'm done with all of you. "But Jake, we're family." "No, we're not. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. You're just people who happen to share my DNA and happen to know where I keep my checkbook. The wedding's ruined. Sophia's humiliated. How can you live with yourself?" "Pretty easily, actually. I'm going to sleep great tonight. And you know what? I did sleep great that night. But the story doesn't end there. It gets so much better." 3 months later, Derek broke up with Sophia. Turns out, when your fiancé costs you a promotion and makes you the laughingstock of your office, the relationship doesn't survive. The demotion at work was just the beginning. Derek went from being on track for senior management to being stuck managing the company's Twitter account and writing captions for pet food ads. His boss made it clear that Derek's character concerns meant he'd never be considered for leadership again. Derek's parents were furious about the professional humiliation and blamed Sophia for bringing the wrong kind of family drama into their lives. They convinced Derek that marrying into a family with such unstable dynamics would be social and professional suicide. When Derek called to end things, he actually had the nerve to tell Sophia it was because her brother was clearly unhinged and he couldn't risk being associated with that kind of behavior. The irony was completely lost on both of them. Sophia had to move back in with our parents because she'd never learned to support herself financially. She's now 28 years old, working at a nail salon for $12 an hour, plus tips, living in her childhood bedroom, while all her friends have moved on with their lives and careers. The Instagram photos of her perfect life stopped pretty abruptly. Derek had to move back in with his parents too because his social media coordinator salary couldn't cover his expensive lifestyle. Last I heard from mutual acquaintances, he's bitter and embarrassed, and his parents treat him like a disappointment who threw away his promising career over a woman. Derek's parents face their own consequences. Word spread through their country club social circle about how they'd treated their son's disabled future brother-in-law. Connecticut old money families might be snobby, but they also have strict codes about treating veterans and disabled people with respect. When the story got around and these social circles love their gossip, the Wilsons found themselves quietly uninvited from several charity galas and social events. Patricia Wilson went from organizing committees to being notably absent from invitation lists. My parents had to take out a second mortgage to pay back the vendors who were demanding payment for services that had been canceled last minute. Turns out, when you cancel a wedding 8 days beforehand, you still owe pretty much everybody money. The venue charged them the full cancellation fee. The caterer demanded 75% of the total bill, and all the other vendors had similar penalties. They're still paying off that debt. And me, I bought a beautiful house in the mountains with the money I didn't spend on their wedding. Found a woman who thinks my scars make me look distinguished and like a man who survived something important. We're talking about getting married next year, and when we do, it'll be a celebration with people who actually value having me there. The best part is the messages. Sometimes Sophia sends me long, rambling texts begging for money to help with rent or asking me to just talk because she misses her brother. Mom calls every few months asking for help with bills or home repairs. Dad sent me a Facebook message last month asking if I could loan him money for a new truck. I read every message, screenshot it, and then delete it without responding. They still don't get it. They think I'm being petty and holding grudges and that I should forgive and forget because family is forever. But here's what they never understood. You can't treat someone like garbage for years. Take their money while hiding them away like a shameful secret, and then expect them to come running when your world falls apart. I learned that lesson from getting burned. Sometimes the damage is permanent and you have to accept the new reality and build something better from what's left. They're learning that lesson now. The funniest part, I drive past them sometimes around town. Sophia working at that nail salon looking exhausted and older than her years. Derek pumping gas in his cheap suit before heading to his insurance office. My parents driving their 15-year-old car because they can't afford payments on anything newer. I saw Sophia at the grocery store a few months ago. She was using coupons and clearly counting every dollar, buying generic brands and checking her phone calculator before adding items to her cart. When she saw me, she actually started to approach, probably to ask for money again, but I just looked right through her and kept walking the look on her face. This mixture of hurt and desperate hope almost made me feel bad for about half a second. Derek's trajectory has been equally satisfying to watch. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he tried to get his old job back, but word had spread through the Hartford business community about his character issues. Turns out, professional circles are smaller than you think, and nobody wants to hire someone who treats disabled family members like garbage. His LinkedIn profile used to be full of ambitious posts about crushing goals and building empire. Now, it just says insurance agent with no updates in over a year. And every time I see them, I remember that little girl I ran into a burning building to save, and I think about how she grew up to be ashamed of the scars I got saving her life. Then I drive home to my beautiful house and my beautiful girlfriend, who loves every mark on my body because they're proof that I'm brave enough to run toward danger when people I love are in trouble. Too bad they never appreciated having someone like that in their family. Now they get to live without it.